How's it going, Andrew?
Long time no see. What's going on, Matt?
Same old, same old. Here we are recording in your garage.
Oh, yeah. We're enjoying the weather. We got both sides of the garage open. For the listeners, I have a double-sided garage, so there's a garage door on each side. So we got a nice wind flow through this bad boy, which is nice.
I like it. It's actually kind of a fun setup. I like recording outside.
Yeah, I mean, we can do this for a little bit while the summer's still, the weather still maintains in the fall. It's nice that we're able to record in the morning right now, bright and early.
Yeah, bright and early before my brain's functioning.
Yep, a fresh cup of coffee right in front of me, ready to rock.
I think
juices are flowing.
I think shortly I may need to bother you for a cup of coffee as well.
Yeah, we can make some more coffee for sure. So I know I listened to the podcast while editing it, which was a treat in its own right.
Sorry, I sent you like 15 files to stitch together.
My only criticism is next time you go on a solo interviewing tirade, put the number of the episode on the far left side and then whatever in the description, because then I can just see 1 through 15.
Right.
It's easier to follow, but it wasn't too bad. I mean, it was honestly like really perfect for my ADHD because it would be 15 like 5 to 10 minute episodes, and I'd just be like, "Ooh, piece of candy, done. Put it in the file. Ooh, piece of candy, edit into the file."
Right.
And so it kind of actually was easier because I was like, "Oh, look at all the tasks I completed," when it was just one big task broken into 15.
I mean, that was the unfortunate thing of like doing it with the lavalier mics versus like these mics in our recording system is I wasn't able to like continue recording all under the same file.
Yeah.
Every time I went to record, because I was just recording on voice memos on my phone, every time I went to record, it started a new file. So
yeah, I mean, that wasn't too bad. I had to get it like switched into a different format, which luckily the editing AI software we use that helps. It does that automatically, so that was easy.
Right.
But yeah, it's cool. Sounds like you had a lot of fun.
Always. It's second year in a row, and both years have been a blast. So
what would you say would be your biggest highlight? I'd listened to a lot of the highlights from there, but we haven't had a personal conversation really about it.
I think my biggest highlight actually was just the sheer amount of time I got to spend with some brothers that I'm very close with. I got to enjoy 6 days of fellowship with some really good brothers. I mean, the true test, in my opinion, of like a friendship and how well you actually get along with people is like spending like 6 days in constant contact with them for the most part.
Yep.
And when you're getting sore and tired because you're putting like 1,800 miles on the motorcycles and everything else. So it was fun. And we had a blast. The fellowship down there is great. The degree work's top notch. We had a blast.
Yeah, I could tell that the common theme amongst all the brethren you interviewed was how amazing it was to meet so many brothers from so many places and share fellowship together, which is a show called Time for Fellowship. Like, I think I've been noticing more and more with any guest how much value as a fraternity we put on fellowship and fraternizing and, building a community together and all that type of stuff. So it was interesting to see that, like, you're there to see a degree in like a very cool place, but still everyone's like, "Oh, that fellowship is really good though." And you know what I mean?
Yep. And it is amazing. I mean, I can travel to Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee with no questions asked now. I know brothers everywhere, and if I traveled, I'd be more than welcome to come visit their lodge. And it's such a unique feeling to be able to know that you can just go do that.
And you won't even be examined very aggressively because they've sat in open lodge with you. So if you know someone, they can actually go, "Yep, actually, I'm not going to have to test them that much because I can vouch because I literally sat in lodge with them." And you're like, "Yep."
Yep, exactly. So now you've sat in an open lodge with these guys, so they're just like, "Yeah, you're cool."
Yeah, they're like, "Yep, I can verify pretty easily now."
I can vouch for them, yeah.
Yep. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, it sounds like a blast. I just spent the entire weekend at Irish Fest working for 14-hour days, standing on my feet. On Monday when I got back, done with the shifts. So on Sunday, when I woke up in the morning on Monday, I swear I couldn't walk. I just laid on the floor all day. Yeah. My legs were so sore.
Yeah.
But it was a fun year at Irish Fest too. We had a lot of really good performers, a lot of good stuff. So we were both having fun in our respective places.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You like doing that Irish Fest thing, so.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's a lot of work, but it's fun. Cool. Well, let's do a quick intro. And today, to kind of loop in, we're going to be talking about the spiritual importance of community through the lens of being a Freemason. So,
sweet.
Let's hit it.
Loosen up your ties and roll up your sleeves. It's time for fellowship with Matt and Andrew. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are not necessarily the views and opinions of the Grand Lodge of Wisconsin or any other Grand Lodge or any appended body.
Right. We have a puppers joining the podcast now today. Welcome, Maddox. You want to say something to our listeners, or are you just going to hang out?
He's not a brother, but since I can't tell the secrets to any humans, he knows too many of the secrets on accident from practicing ritual staring at a dog.
Yeah, my dog is probably a well-educated Mason at this point as well.
I think my dog's at least an entered apprentice, I think.
Right. Yep. Yep. Well, when you're practicing, you gotta. Hey, somebody's gonna hear.
I guess technically it might be a violation because the first part is he has to be a man, but he's a man in my heart.
Yeah, well, I think most Masons' dogs probably, if they could talk, could recite all the ritual.
Cool. Well, today I wanted to talk about community, which is something we've been talking about a little bit throughout the entire podcast. I think it's unavoidable when you're talking about Freemasonry.
I agree.
So, I was thinking the other day, I was listening to an audiobook, and it was a guy talking about various spiritual practices, and one that he identified as really important was community, right? So it got me thinking, I go, what is it about community that is so important, especially in the modern era? Right now, I think it's been more important than ever.
I would agree. Community, and I've probably said this before, community is taking a very different turn in taking a very different turn in modern times. Most people think of their community as being like their online communities now, and you don't get that same interaction that you have actually sitting down across from a person, or shaking hands with a person, or being in the same room even as a person when you're talking real life community versus online community. Yep.
I would agree, and I think that that's one thing that has been drawing so many more younger Masons in is especially in modern American culture, I mean, around the world it's different, but in modern American culture, the breakdown of communal living has been very fast growing in the last, 30, 40 years. So I think that's left a hole for people that they can't fill, where they feel isolated and they feel kind of alone. And I know what we were talking, we had that speaker at Grand Lodge talking about men's loneliness and how it's been drastically on the rise, where a lot of men can't even say they have 2 to 3 friends. And I think that's something that Masonry offers as a way to repair that type of problem. And so from the perspective, I was reading a book by John Mark Comer. It's from a Christian's perspective, but it was still kind of an interesting read. I listened to a podcast with him on it as well, and I started working through his book on Audible. But it was from his opinion, he believed that personal and spiritual growth doesn't happen in isolation, but is deeply rooted in relationships and communal living. And I think that resonated with me really well, because we talk in Lodge all the time that you're no, I need, we say iron sharpens iron, right?
Yep.
And things like that we're no, the Brotherhood is what supports the infrastructure for the personal development, the personal growth that we experience as Masons.
Right. And I think something else Freemasonry can offer as far as community goes is we offer a place free from the divisiveness of some of the rest of the world. It's free from politics. It's free from religion for the most part. And I think that offers people a very unique experience as we are so divided these days.
Well, and so the thing that is unique too within Masonry is, people in the world right now, they're not talking with people. They just don't have intentional relationships, right? They're talking with coworkers sometimes. They're talking to people at the store. There might be various things that they do where they, they're being human and they're talking with people and having conversation, but they don't have any intentional relationships, right? Something they said, no, I want to spend time with these people.
Right.
And it's not and it's not just about having conversations. It's about sharing in each other's, struggles and triumphs, being there in the good times and the bads, and just, any good friendship, right?
Right.
And you'll see in Masonry, that's what really helps build a really close-knit group of people.
Right. Well, and on top of that, being able to disagree and still get along and stuff like that, which you see very little of these days, And I voluntarily chose to go on a 6-day trip and spend 5 nights, whatever it was, in a hotel room with another brother. I mean, because we're cost sharing, so
Yep.
It's not like we all got our own rooms, and it's a blast, and you just don't see a lot of that going on in the world anymore, where it's these, guys getting together and going on 6-day trips together, just a guys trip, whatever,
Yep.
and to be able to do that kind of travel and stuff like that with people is, I think it's a very important part of the community and just the human experience in general.
Yeah, and it's something that in human physiology and not physiology, psychology, I should say, like being in a tribe is like in our DNA, right? It's been how humans have survived for thousands of years, and as the world's gotten more individualistic and kind of isolated, even though you have thousands of friends on Facebook, you might only see 2 friends every couple of months,
right?
In real life, I think there's a huge impact that has on human psychology by a lot, because I think that we're underestimating how special it is to have, when you're a Freemason, you have 20 friends, and sure, like some are closer and some are more like acquaintances, but they all have the potential to be your friend if you intentionally want to spend more time with them. Like you really open the door to a lot of cool friendships and relationships.
You do. And, I'm not trying to fault like online relationships. Some of the online stuff got me through COVID. I was gaming at least a couple times a week with guys that I knew beforehand, but it was our way to stay in contact with each other and continue our friendships throughout it. But I think online relationships need to be a supplement to in-person relationships.
Yep. And the other thing, that's important because, online relationships, depending on their nature too, like staring at someone's social media is not a relationship. Gaming and stuff is a little closer to an augmented one because you're sharing an activity.
Right.
You're talking freely. Like, that's a little closer to like a virtual friendship more than just like, I have friends on Facebook. But the thing that I think is cool about Masonry too is so as we get older, it gets really hard to schedule hangouts, right?
You get more going on.
Even with like your friends, like, you might have a kid, you're married, you have all these responsibilities that kind of take you away from being able to always find time. And if you're trying to get like 5 of your buddies together, it can be you scheduling months in advance to be like, this day we're hanging out, right?
Right.
Masonry's nice in the way that there's a set day or days every month to say, this day of the month, keep your calendar open, forever, basically. It'd be like, This is your stated night. This will be the night for you to make that touch point and to make that connection again with your friends in Lodge. So there's this nice thing where it's always on the calendar, so it's easy to schedule because you always know when it is.
Yep. You have a guaranteed hang.
Yep. And so like that is something that is really helpful, especially as you get older, to be like, hey, we have time to hang out.
Well,
and make the most of that time too.
And I feel like that feeds into mental health, because even if it is like a month in between, right? If you have something go on a week after the last one, in 3 weeks you're going to see those guys and be able to, talk about it in person. Or if anything, you can always text them or give them a call, but you have that guaranteed hang where if there's something that came up, you're going to be able to just deal with it at that point. And I think there's almost a peace to knowing that at least once a month I'm going to see all these guys.
Yep. And that's how that's how it creates a foundation, like a consistent foundation of the relationship within the Masonic community, which is, it creates those strong bonds, the mortar and brick together society of sorts,
Right. Well, and I mean, we've said it before, if it wasn't for Masonry, we probably would have no reason to know each other right now.
Yep, exactly. I just see you like at some fest riding your motorcycle by and be like, who the that guy?
Yep. And there's a bleep.
Who the fudge is that guy? I need to remember to go back and add a beep now. We'll see if I remember. I'll do my best to keep something PJ-13. I think you just need. Oh, you can only have one F-bomb.
You can only have one. Yep.
There it goes.
So we're good. You used our quota, and I think the first time that's ever been dropped on the podcast.
I think there was one other time I dropped it, but I did beep it, or I just deleted it out.
Right.
So the other fun thing that is unique. So in this book that I was reading, they were talking about the needs, how a strong community is built, and one method is through the members feeling comfortable being vulnerable and authentic. And I think that Masonry does that really well through some of our obligations, which have us say, hey, you should have someone's back, you should listen, and on the other side, they say in the serving one another. So the fact that we have relief systems and we do back each other up is another way that it creates not only a byproduct you get going into the community of having the social and psychological part dealt with, it also has stuff that can come out of it. You can get help. People are willing to support you, which, you know, we were talking in the kitchen before we came out here, how you've made connections over the years. So if you have issues in your house, you know who to call to get help or to talk about it. Not everyone has those connections. But Masonry, having such a diverse group of men, you can find people who have so many different skill sets to ring up and be like, dude, I got a problem. How do I do this? And they're like, oh, dude, easy. I'll tell you how to do it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And to go back to your initial point about the ability to be vulnerable and stuff, I think that touches on the initiatic experience, or even just walking into a lodge not really knowing anybody. You're putting yourself in a situation where you are vulnerable, and now everybody has that shared common experience of putting themselves in a position where they have to be vulnerable is a strong word for it, but you really are making yourself that way when you're walking into a situation of unknowns.
You don't know these people, you know what I mean? You're trusting that they are what they say they are and that they're good people.
Right. So we all have this shared initiatic experience of being in that position where we've, been vulnerable, and then that leads us to be able to continue to build upon that relationship and that foundation and share some things that, maybe may make us seem, more or less vulnerable, but we're willing to share those experiences because we have a shared common experience, and therefore we can open up about some of our problems more.
Yep. And the fact that you're in a community that's so diverse, lots of people have been through lots of different things, right?
Yep.
So, like, if you're with your friends you've always grown up with, you might have a problem, but you already know their whole life, and you go, that guy's never been through anything like this. I don't know if I want to talk to him about that. But in Masonry, there's so many things that people have lived through that it feels sometimes like you're a little more comfortable being like, dude, this is what I'm going through. And a brother's gone through a similar situation, and they can actually offer either good advice or just a good ear to console you with it too.
Right. And even if they necessarily haven't gone through a similar situation, you got guys in the room that have 30 years worth of life experience on you. You got guys in the room who have, are younger than you, but maybe still are wise beyond their years necessarily and can offer sound advice or a different perspective on things. And when you're able to pull from all those, it's really helpful.
Yep. It creates a good ability to gather good advice, because like you're saying, like sometimes the sage advice is oftentimes, it can be sometimes too thoughtful for the situation, like relax, slow down. Sometimes the young person advice can be like a little more fiery, like get after it. And depending on the situation, you might need something in the middle, and being able to hear how multiple people would deal with the situation can kind of help you come to your solution on like, all right, I need to do it like this to get through it.
Right. Exactly. And, I think it's just important to remember that you need a community to lean on. You can't do it all by yourself.
Nope. And I think, having the backing. I mean, we were sitting at the pub the other day after we were doing our code correspondence training at Lodge, and we had a brother who's like, dude, I'm trying to finish my house. I just need hands to help mud walls. And like four of us, like, all right, we'll start slotting in days. We'll sneak over there. We'll try to help you meet your timelines. Like, if you just need hands-on labor, there's definitely a handful of hands-on laborers ready to work in your the quarry of your house finishing.
Right.
And more than willing to jump right in and be like, oh, all right, let's get a time. We'll get in there and start getting to work. So And all it's simply just by as easy as just asking. You didn't have to say, I'll pay you guys, I'll give you guys pizza, I'll do this. You're just like, guys, I'm running short on time and I really could use some help. And the brethren are like, all right, let's send a text out. Let's get some people. Let's
go mud some drywall.
Yeah, let's go mud some drywall. We're not doing ceilings.
Right. Well, I'm at least not doing ceilings. I'll give that to a younger man. Mudding ceilings is a fun adventure.
But yeah, I mean, there's this nice thing too that within our community, our goal isn't always just to keep it within the community. Like, we do try to reach out to the greater community of our things, and that's something that I know lodges have been trying to work on too, where some lodges have been too insular and too isolationist. Kind of keeping everything in house is Freemason lodges do use they lobby the strength of their community to try to affect their greater community around them through various charitable activities as well. So it's like you're able to, like, you know, take a bunch of, this allegory might fall apart, we'll see, take a bunch of like raw iron, smith it together and make a tool that's very useful that can now be put into the hands of the community to do good work.
I mean, I can live with that analogy. I would say maybe a better way to put it would be, it's like putting all the ingredients on a pizza.
Yeah, and then feeding people with it.
Yep, there you go.
But yeah, and the other thing that I think is interesting too is, was thinking about how, I don't want to say that Masonry is a counterculture, because a lot of its values are very traditional, but in the modern times, it kind of is very different from the rest of society's direction, where it wants to go, being like, yep, we're going for high tech, we're doing that. And yeah, Masonry does need to endeavor to be a little more high tech at times, but the ideology that we share is very old, whereas the world is pushing towards a lot of individualism, materialism, pushing for, growth, tech use, all this stuff. Masonry's focusing on different things that it seems like the I don't want to say, like, the economic engine of society has been pushing in a different direction, and then Masonry's saying, let's go back and try to focus on things that have always been helpful throughout time. Things that shouldn't have been lost, been thrown out when we threw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right. When society's pushing for individualism and just making your own way and everything else, Freemasonry focuses on self-improvement, but through community.
Yep. It's almost, the thing that I think is so fascinating about Freemasonry is it's not extreme on either side of that fence. It's not entirely communitive or community-based, and it's not entirely individualistic. It says, let's build the individual and also put him into a community where he can be a more effective member. So it kind of sits in the teetering middle between collectivism and individualism, and says, no, we need to find the balance, circumscribe and say you should be an effective individual. But if you're an effective individual by yourself, to what end? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
What are you giving back to? Or are you just lonely and you're like, I can do a lot of cool things, but I'm lonely. You know what I mean?
And what happens when you put a bunch of effective individuals who are all seeking self-improvement in the same room together? They
end up supporting, lifting each other up.
Right. And now you have a team.
Yeah, an effective team.
You have an extraordinarily effective team that can actually, go out in their communities and affect change.
Yep. And to be able to lobby so many people's skill set gives you greater power to do so, too. It gives you more to offer.
Yep.
Because you have more people. The other interesting thing that I saw in this thing that I was reading was, it talked about how to really build a strong community is through shared practices. Check. Know what I mean?
No,
so that's how you unify a community and create a deeper sense of connection. So you can start to see the framework of how Masonry was designed. They're like, if we have this shared philosophy through unique ritual practices, it makes people feel very connected to one another, which makes people from various walks of life able to overlook their differences and find what they have in common.
Right.
So they can best work and best agree
Yep.
on how to move forward as a team.
Well, and I think that's one of the big things that makes Freemasonry effective at building a community, is the fact that we are taught to embrace the differences and not to look at a brother because of his political views or religious views, but to look at who the man is beyond that and understand that we can disagree, but we do it civilly and we still love each other.
Yep, and when you disagree, I mean, that's the thing is, the things that really divide us are so superficial most of the time. They're like mind ideas. They're like, I don't like how his mind think about stuff. It's like, but do you like hanging out with him? Do you think he works well? Do you think he does hard work with the lodge? And it's like, yeah, but I don't like how he think about stuff sometimes. And you're like, okay, but like if you really think about it, besides the ability to create an argument, which is an argument over he think different, it really, you know what I mean? Like it really gets silly where you're like,
right.
Especially when you're looking at politics, you're like, he got 1 vote out of 1 million and I'm mad at him for it. And you're like, who cares? You're like, it's so insignificant. And it's not like he's personally going around doing horrible things based on your ideological differences. He's just one dude who's just like, I just got an opinion on something. And you're like, I don't like his opinion on that. I guess I can't hang out with him no more. And that's a problem because in society, like, that is, if you really shave it down, you go, it really, as long as you, like Masonry encourages, don't constantly belittle one another over it. The biggest problem with these ideological differences, whether they be religious, socioeconomic, political, or whatever it might be, is just that you talk about it bad. Like, so it's like, if you don't talk about it bad, it ceases to matter very quickly. And you're like, yeah, and that's a powerful thing to have in a community, the ability to say, just stop being annoying with stuff once in a while and just be friends, you know?
Just stop using those opinions as your identity.
Yeah, divorce your ego from something that is not, it has almost little to nothing to do with you for the most part.
Right. Well, and, you know, you hear a lot about, like, identity politics, for example, right? Your political viewpoints should never define your identity. And that's where that's where we strip some of that away and we allow people to, you know, have their own opinions and everything else, but that's not what that person is.
Yeah, that's just something that they vote for in a ballot box once in a while.
Right.
It's insignificant. And it's like, you know, I miss society where everyone just distrusted politics altogether, where they were just like, I don't have a strong opinion on this. Like, it's fine. But, like, you know, it's one of these things that it's such a strong system that we are different, necessarily different in this community, because it allows the better transfer of ideas and different opinions in a safe space where you go, hey, like, certain types of people think about things a certain way and certain other types think about it another way. Having both those as a resource for a lodge to pull from can be really helpful because you get a lot diverse lines of thinking. Whereas if you just have an echo chamber of everybody who thinks the same thing all the time, it's not actually all that helpful because you go, you might as well just have two of you guys because we already know what direction you're going to go with. You need to have opposition on ideas and thinking and individuals to really find the secret sauce on this pizza that we're feeding the community.
You do, because living in an echo chamber does nothing but reinforce your own viewpoints, right? But if you can actually have a civil conversation with somebody of a differing opinion, it may either change your viewpoints or actually strengthen your viewpoints in that now you understand where the weaknesses in your viewpoints are and how to defend them, right?
Or it might lightly amend your viewpoint. Like 70% of it I still agree with, but there's a small part that, I think I do need to tweak to come to a better conclusion. I mean, that's why, you know, the salons and coffee houses of France during the Enlightenment were so popular because people felt they could share ideas and be challenged and also, strengthen them or abandon them or modify them and move on.
Yep.
That's a good human activity for the mind that only a community like that can provide. And, you know, the salons of France were a community. They were the same guys who would frequent those and they would form groups. And I think humans have done this throughout their history, and that's how we've always survived, is through creating communities.
And I think we've gotten away from that. We now have closed off communities in current culture. You have this community that believes A over here and this community that believes B over here, and the people from community A don't interact with the people from community B, at least not in any positive way for the most part, especially on the internet.
Especially behind a keyboard where no one can see who you are.
Right, exactly. But Freemasonry allows us to bridge that gap where it doesn't matter if you're in community A or community B. You're now in community Freemasonry.
Yep, you're in community C, which is a amalgamation of all these other communities. Yeah, it bridges. I know I've always thought that was super special when you see in a room. You're like, look at all these people.
Yep.
Yeah, I know we always say on the podcast, there's a doctor, there's an electrician, there's a lawyer, there's a plumber. That guy works in an office, I guess. That guy,
that guy has a job like Andrew, where nobody knows exactly what he does.
Yep, sit at a computer and take unnecessary meetings. That guy over there, he's roofing. You get like this mix where you're like, usually these groups are siloed off from one another.
Yep.
You're like that guy's from a different race, that guy's from a different religion. Like usually all these groups they're kept at bay through societal norms or even just location. Like they're like, I don't live near each other, and they come to a meeting point and they're able to break those artificial and illusionary barriers that we put between people,
right,
and tear them down and say, we're a society of men,
right,
wherever so dispersed.
They're not real barriers. They're barriers that we create for ourselves, or
society creates for us,
society
or our
creates
culture creates for us,
right? Yep,
whatever
exactly.
it might be.
However, they're created.
Yep.
They're artificial barriers that get created that don't really serve a purpose other than to divide and not unify. And I think Freemasonry has the ability to unify.
Yep.
Which is desperately needed in today's world.
And I mean, a takeaway for our listeners, because we oftentimes, even when we were on the Third Degree podcast a couple weeks ago, and we do, to our listeners, still plan on having them on our podcast as well. If you haven't checked them out yet, please go to the Third Degree podcast and check them out.
Oh, yeah.
But when we were talking with them, they were talking about how they really enjoy when we talk about the importance of lodge culture. And I think that is also something that you need to take into account when you're thinking about what kind of community your lodge is, right?
Yep.
So that plays in too. If your community is bigoted or various other issues which can leak into the fraternity like it does anywhere else, that does not create that strong community. So you always need to think, is my lodge culture providing a safe space for its members to feel like they can confide in one another? Are we helping one another, and are we helping our community? And are we creating strong ritual to bond us together as a community? Because that culture and that community are hand in hand within, and that's the microcosm of the larger Masonic community. It all starts at the lodge level. Your smaller community, then it grows up to the bigger Masonic community, which all has its own features, but the boots to the ground area where that community happens is at your lodge.
Right, and I think that was very well put in. We should just about close on that, but I have one more thing to add. I think it's important for us to remember as Freemasons that community doesn't need to just exist inside the lodge. We can take it outside the lodge and be the example of being the bigger and better people and showing people what a community can look like by exemplifying it in our everyday lives.
I agree. I think that's a good place to stop it, and a good takeaway for our listeners. And now we'll just move on to some news and events.
Excellent.
All right, it's time for news and events. So Matt and I were talking, and we're going to try to tighten up our news and events a little bit. We run a little long on them, so we are going to start just grabbing a handful here and there, just some big highlights. One thing to note, if you want to guarantee a plug on news and events, we just need you to email us at timeforfellowship@gmail.com, and we'll make sure we include that in our news and events. But we found that doing the entire state was a little lengthy. It was a little hard to find all the events that were going on, so we're just going to pick the easy-to-find ones and highlight some ones that we think are really cool in the area to plug. But yeah, just heads up. So if you ever want your event posted, email us at
timeforfellowship@gmail.com, or send us a message on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram.
Yep, either works for us. But anyways, on to some news. So, the Freemasons from Sun Prairie Masonic Lodge donated $3,000 to Sun Prairie School District's free and reduced lunch program. Donation was made at the most recent Sun Prairie School Board, and it was going to be a huge help to be applied to the school's lunch funds to feed their students. This is an awesome program, a generous donation. I'm sure that the kids over at East High School, it sounds like, well, the school district of Sun Prairie, I'm sure they appreciate the ability to get some lunches.
Yep, that's awesome. All right, so on to events. September 5th from 5:30 to 8:30 roughly p.m. Lake Masonic Center will be having their open house. This is open to families, kids, everything else. We're going to have a bouncy house there. Job's Daughters, D. Malay, the Yorkite Bodies, both Blue Lodges will be there. So if you want any information about anybody that meets at Lake or any of the appendant bodies or youth groups, feel free to come on by. We have free food. Come enjoy some fellowship. Andrew and I will obviously both be there. And yeah, come hang out with us.
Yep, and this is a great event because it's a baby between all the collaboration between all the groups that meet at Lake Masonic Center. So it's Lake Lodge, Damascus Lodge, the Yorkite Bodies, the OES,
the
youth groups, Order of Amarath. Like, we have a bunch of groups that all True Kindred. Yep, we have a lot of groups that put a lot of work into this, and so they're excited to be able to share, and it's a good opportunity to make some friends.
And this is what, the third year we're doing it?
Yep, third year. It was your baby, and then now somehow it's my baby.
Is it the third, or is this the second? It was kind of in a different form one year. This is the second year of it in its current form.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's your baby because you're junior warden, and that's where we decided to house it with.
No, it's your baby, and then now I'm just stuck taking care of it.
Yeah, well, I'll be back around to taking care of it again, so it's fine.
That's true.
Also coming up at Lake Masonic Center, we will be having a blood drive on September 14th from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. The Wisconsin Blood Center mobile unit will be there. The building will be open. It is open to anybody to sign up for. We do have a goal of 17 donors. I believe a max of 31 that can get put through that day. There are flyers in the District 12 mailer, or you can reach out to me to get the flyer with sign-up information, or I can actually sign you up since I am coordinator of the drive. So that's kind of cool. If somebody wants to do it and doesn't know how to, doesn't want to give them a call or know how to go fill out all the forms online, I can actually sign you up for available appointment times as well. So if you have any interest in that or would like the flyer to put out in your local area, if you're around the southeastern Wisconsin area, please email us at timeforfellowship@gmail.com and I will get that to you. Also coming up on September 21st would be the Conference of Principal Officers for the state. This is a new adventure that's being put on by Worshipful Brother Adam Rigdon up in Watoma. I believe there's been flyers around. There has been a slight change to it. It is now open to all line officers. So if you are interested in coming up and learning about planning a calendar, making a strategic plan, bylaw changes, all that kind of stuff, please look for that event or reach out to Adam. I believe we said
the email is, hold on, I can find it in 2 seconds here to reach out and RSVP. The email, here it is, 1 second. And you can always get information RSVP for the Wisconsin Conference of Principal Officers by emailing Wautoma, WAUTOMA 148 at gmail.com. So Wautoma 148 at gmail.com. And they can get you on that list. And definitely a great event. I know if you guys listen to the podcast regularly, you heard us bring them on to talk about it. It's going to be a good chance to learn some skills to take care of your lodge.
Yep. I think it's an excellent opportunity. And no, it's a lot to ask brothers to travel on a Saturday and potentially stay overnight somewhere, depending where you're coming from in the state. But it's an excellent opportunity. And the more we can learn and grow together, the more successful all of our lodges will be. All right. On September 26th, Fort Winnebago Lodge in Portage is putting on a steak dinner, Masonic trivia, and bourbon tasting event. It's open to EAs, FCs, and MMs. Cost is $25, payable at the door the night of the event, although RSVPs are required to ensure that they have enough food. It goes from 7 to 9 p.m., and you can RSVP to District Deputy Ryan Mayrand no later than Thursday, September 19th. So that email address is dd7@wimasons.org. So if you would like to go check that event out, please RSVP to Ryan.
Cool. And just a couple more events I want to plug here for you guys. 2 things going on at Wisconsin 13. So Wisconsin 13 has their 175th, you heard me right, 175th, 175th rededication. It's going to be over at their building at 2 p.m. on September 29th. So once you're there, they actually have, coming up at 4 p.m. the same day, a gun raffle as well. So if you go there, you can spend a good chunk of your day enjoying fellowship, you get to see a rededication, and you could win a firearm. So always fun, and that'll be going on basically from 2 p.m. for the rededication and 4 p.m. for the gun raffle.
And if you reach out to the guys at Wisconsin 13, I know you can buy gun raffle tickets now through them. I actually have one already because I'm unable to be there that day, but I purchased a ticket at their meeting, so they are actively selling those gun raffle tickets right now, and you don't need to be present to win. So reach out to one of the guys at the Wisconsin 13 if you'd like one.
Yep, and a good way to support them as well.
Yep.
Cool. And then the last event I want to talk about is the next day, September 30th. The Masonic Symposium's coming back for another education symposium. Woo. Very exciting. They do a great job. That's through the Grand Lodge education team, right? And they are doing, their topic for this one is Masonic myths and legends.
Awesome. I missed the last one. I'm definitely going to have to catch this one.
Yeah, I really enjoy these. They're really a good education opportunity, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it to any of our brethren in Wisconsin to stop by and take some time for some education from the comfort of your homes.
Excellent. Well, I hope everyone's having a great day, and we will talk to you soon.
Take care.
Say goodbye, Maddox.
Bye. All right, see you guys.